Welcome back to Cloudhill. Today we are talking about the C70 again, but today we're talking frame rates, and we're talking its fast frame rates. So it's slow motion, as I like to call it. But first, let's roll that intro. Okay, so the C70 has been out for a short time now, and I'm sure you're all aware that it shoots 180 frames per second. But the thing is, it can be a little bit difficult to find that setting sometimes. So I just thought I should do a little video just to show you exactly where it is. Okay, so if we pop into the menu, you'll see that we're shooting on the Super 35mm sensor and at 4K. Now, to get into the slow motion recording, you come over to the recording mode, come into there, and then go down to slow and fast motion. You'll see that the frame rate menu now becomes available. We can go into there and select our frame rate. But as you can see, there is nothing higher than 120 frames. Because to get to the 180 frames, you have to be in the Super 16 sensor. So if we come back out of there, and then come up to sensor mode, drop down to the Super 16 sensor, you'll see in a second that the shot has changed to quite a cropped shot, and we get a warning coming up saying that the maximum resolution is the 2K. So if we hit OK on that, and we can see that it is already now given us just the only two options of the 2K and the 1920. But if we now come out of there and then come across, we can now go into the frame rate, he says, and now you can see we get the option to select the 180 frames a second. Now, you can see the difference in the crop from what we had beforehand. So it does make quite a difference on the shot, moving from the Super 16 sensor to the Super 16 sensor from the Super 35 sensor. But does it make that much difference? So here is an example of the 120 frames a second. We're doing a bit of a cliche classic of the water dropping into the glass. And then this one, obviously you can see the difference in the framing of the shots now at 180 frames. But I'm going to line these up for you so you can see them as a shot by shot, and reset the frames, reset the shots so that the water droplet is just out of shot. You can see that the 180 frames is a bit slower, but it's not a huge amount. In terms of actual times, if you're shooting on or if you're using a 24 frames a second timeline, your 120 frames gets you around 5 times slower, a little bit less than 5 times slower, and your 180 frames gets you closer to between 8 and 9 times slower. But in terms of on screen, you can see the sort of difference it gives you. So one option this does come with now is it not only does it do slow motion, but you now have the ability to record the audio when it records the slow motion. But there is a little bit of a trick to this. So if we come back into the menu and come into recording mode, you'll see below slow and fast motion, it also gives you the option of SNF clip with audio wave. So if you select that, it will now record the audio as well. Just one thing on that though, you need to have 2 SD cards fitted in the camera. If you don't, it won't record the WAV file. Excuse me. So it needs that. Now if you look in the upper right corner, where normally your 2 cards would be reading as MP4 and MP4, you'll notice that card B is reading as a WAV file. So once you've actually recorded it, when you remove the SD card out, it doesn't actually place the WAV file quite where you think it would be. So if you pop your SD card in, and you'll get your usual contents, DMC, MISC folders and private folders, and if you have a quick look, you'll see that it doesn't appear into the contents folder or into the DMC folder, and it's placed in an audio folder in the private folder, and there you can see WAV files from when I was recording slow motion earlier. So it's in a bit of a bizarre place, not probably where you first look at it, but now you know exactly where to find it if you're using that function. Well, I hope that's given you a helpful insight into some of the functionality of the C70. I'm absolutely loving this camera. It did take me a little bit of a while to figure that out, and I may have had to make a call to Canon, but got there in the end, and so thought that I would share that with you. Like I said, I'm absolutely loving this. We don't tend to use the 180 frames too much. We more prefer the 120 frames, and even then we're not even shooting that in the 4K that often. We are more inclined to be using it at the 2K full HD range. One last quick thing on that, be sure that you've got the V90 SD cards if you do want to be recording 120 frames at 4K, as it's a lot of data that needs to be moved very quickly, and if your cards aren't up for it, it isn't going to record it, and you're going to end up with about 1 second, maybe a little bit more of real-time 120 frames, which will equate to about 4 seconds of footage. So that's just another thing to bear in mind if you are planning on shooting a lot of high-speed filming. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please drop us a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment, and please subscribe, and you might find out something interesting in the next video.